Hey everyone, let's start by watching what happened this morning. But yes, Lori Vallow, the judge has ruled, can represent herself in her trial, the murder trial, the conspiracy to commit murder trial uh, for Charles Vallow in March 31st. We learned that. It's shocking. We also learned that we're going to have two separate trials for the charges against Brandon Boudreaux, an attempted murder charge for Brandon Boudreaux, and the murder of Charles Vallow. Let's watch. This just came down. It's 13 minutes. Let's watch together, and then we'll talk from there. I have not seen this yet. So it came down about 30 minutes ago. We're watching on Fox 10. They were pool in the courtroom. Thank you to Justin Lum and his station, Fox 10 in Arizona. Let's watch this together and then let's talk.
0101704 CR 2022 001242.
Good morning, Your Honor. Katie Staub for Trina Kay for the state.
Good morning, Your Honor. Pamela Hicks and Robert Abernathy on behalf of Lori Vallow Daybell, who's present and in custody.
Ma'am, can you tell me your name and date of birth, please?
Lori Daybell, 6/26/1973.
All right, thank you. We're here for a status conference. You've been found competent by two separate healthcare providers. Is it your intention, ma'am, you had expressed earlier that you would like to represent yourself?
Yes, sir.
Is that still your intention?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right.
I may approach, Your Honor.
You do understand that you have the right to have attorneys represent you during your cases?
I do.
What grade did you finish in school?
I graduated from high school.
Do you read and understand English?
I do.
Have you had any drugs, alcohol, or medication in the last 24 hours?
No.
Are you currently prescribed any medications in the jail?
No.
Do you believe you're able to present a defense at trial?
I do.
Are you able to listen to what the court, counsel, and witnesses say during trial?
Yes, I will.
Do you believe you're able to ask witnesses questions that are relevant to the case and to your defense?
Absolutely.
Are you able to communicate effectively, do you believe, with the court, counsel, opposing counsel, and the jury?
I do.
I will make a finding that in court, you do appear to act appropriately, speak appropriately, and communicate appropriately. Have you ever represented yourself before?
Not yet.
I do have a waiver form, one for each of your cases. You've gone over that waiver form with your attorneys.
I did.
You understand the waiver forms.
I did.
You have the right to an attorney. If you can't afford an attorney, I would appoint one to represent you. The attorney would represent you at all critical stages of the case, including before trial, at trial, and if you're found guilty at sentencing. Do you understand that?
I do.
An attorney can be of great value and assistance in criminal cases. There are serious disadvantages and dangers to representing yourself. Can you just tell me a little bit why you want to represent yourself?
Yes, Your Honor. For the past 5 years that I've been incarcerated, I have taken it upon myself to study case law and criminal rules of procedure in the state of Idaho and Arizona, as well as federally. Prior to that, for the last 10 years, prior to my incarceration, I did study procedure in family law, and I have real trial experience. I have participated in 3 different full trials from beginning to end.
In family court?
1 in family court, 2 in criminal court, 1 bench trial and 1 jury trial.
Okay. You understand that you have 2 separate cases here. On each of these cases, if you're found guilty at trial, you'd be facing a sentence of up to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 25 years?
Yes, I'm well aware of that.
And you understand that if convicted at trial, that those sentences could run consecutively or concurrently to any other sentence?
I am also well aware of that.
All right. You understand that if you represent yourself, you'll have the sole responsibility for, among other things, asserting legal defenses, interviewing witnesses, doing investigation, doing legal research, filing and arguing motions, examining and cross-examining witnesses, giving an opening statement and a final argument to the jury. Do you understand all that?
Yes, Your Honor, and I'm very prepared
All right. Do you also understand that you'd be held to the same standard as an attorney regarding the presentation of your case? This would include knowledge of courtroom procedure, applicable case law, rules of evidence, and rules of procedure.
Yes.
All right. Each of your attorneys have gone to college, undergrad degree for probably a minimum of 4 years, and then law school for an additional 3 years. So these two attorneys that are here in court each have at a minimum, if not more, 14 years of higher education, as well as probably, I'm guessing, between the two of them, 30 to 40 years in trial experience. Do you understand that?
Yes.
Do you understand that your case may be specifically complicated in the sense that there are complicated evidentiary issues in your case? Do you believe you're able to present a defense?
Yes. I'm well aware of them.
All right. Do you also understand that if at some point, especially if you're in the middle of trial, you decide that you would like your attorneys to take over the case, you'd be effectively waiving any ineffective assistance of counsel claim that you might have because they might like a longer time to prepare?
Correct.
Do you understand that even if I may allow you to represent yourself, I'll be appointing these attorneys to represent you as advisory counsel?
That's my understanding.
All right. If you want to testify at trial, you'd not be able to testify in a narrative format. Instead, you'd need to write out the questions, and the advisory counsels would ask you a question when you testify.
Yes, that's what I'm aware of.
All right. You can change your mind about this at any time. If at any time you want to be represented by your advisory counsel, let me know. I will appoint them back to represent you as your attorneys of record. But once you make the choice to have the lawyer represent you again, I wouldn't allow you to switch back and forth. Do you understand that as well?
Correct.
You also understand that if you ask your advisory counsel to take the case back over in full, you wouldn't be able to repeat anything that had already happened in the case or do over.
Correct.
All right. Because you'll be acting as your own attorney, you'd be expected to appear for every court hearing and every day of trial. If you do not appear for hearings or trial without good cause, I could consider your non-appearance to be an indication that you want to withdraw your right to represent yourself, and I would order your advisory counsel to become your attorney. Do you understand that as well?
Sure.
Your right to represent yourself is not absolute, and what I mean by that is if you fail to follow procedures, if you don't act appropriate in the courtroom, your right to represent yourself could be revoked. Do you understand that as well?
I do understand that.
All right. Do you have any questions about anything?
I just was going to ask if we were going to move forward from this today and if we are going to be able to reset trial.
We will.
Okay.
All right. I did receive your form. Is this your signature at the bottom of each form?
It is?
And I think I already asked you this, but I'll ask it again. Your signature appears on this form after you went over it completely with your attorney?
Correct.
All right. The court finds your waiver to an attorney is knowingly, intelligently, voluntarily made. I guess I should ask you, did anyone force you or threaten you to waive your right to an attorney?
No, quite the opposite.
Did anyone promise you anything in order to get you to waive your right to an attorney?
No.
All right. I do find your waiver is to knowingly, intelligently, voluntarily made. Your waiver is accepted and entered of record. You will be your own attorney on the case. I will keep these attorneys on as your advisory counsel. Again, if you change your mind and would like them to take over the case, you need to let me know, okay?
Okay.
Your current last day is May 11. I'm assuming you want to set a trial date within that last day.
Yes, I do.
All right, we're going to set a trial date March 31st for jury selection at 8:30 a.m. Well, we'll set it at, for now, 9 a.m. That could change the time, but we'll keep the date, March 31st. I'm going to, can I ask advisory counsel, in the event that she wishes to conduct interviews, would you be assisting her in that, or would your office have an investigator that would assist?
Either or.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I think generally OPDS will assign an investigator
Okay.
for that purpose, and we would ask the court to endorse OPDS on this minute, post-minute entry.
All right, the court will appoint an investigator through the Office of Public Defense Services to assist Ms. Vallow in any investigation and or setting up of interviews of any potential witnesses in the trial. I am going to set a status conference to make sure everything's on track for the trial date. I'll ask you again, my understanding is there's a large amount of discovery. You're sure that you're going to be ready in time for March 31st?
Yes, Your Honor. Also, I have a reply to the state's response. I know that we said if you were to let me go pro per, that I would have 3 days to make this response, and I have a copy for the court and a copy for the state, if I could give you that.
Response to what?
To the state's response to my motion to compel discovery that was filed prior to the Rule 11.
Okay, I'm going to have to,
I believe the public defender's office filed it, correct?
was it your prior attorneys that filed the motion to
They
compel
did,
discovery?
correct, yes.
I remember now, we did hold that in abeyance because of the Rule 11 proceedings. So you can go, you're ready to file your reply? All right.
There's one for the state as well, if he needs
Did you get,
it. They're handwritten.
Attorney Trina K filed a response? You received that and saw that?
Yes, this is my reply to her response.
All right, I'll take a look at those pleadings, because to be honest, I haven't looked at them for a little bit. I'm going to set a status conference just to make sure everything's on track. Let's set that at 8:30 a.m. Friday, January 10.
One more time, Your Honor, I'm sorry.
8:30 a.m. Friday, January 10.
Didn't I use your pen?
Let me write it for you, just.
Does that work for the state?
As far as I know.
Okay. Does that work for everyone on the defense?
Yes.
Yes, Judge.
So- oh,
It's your turn.
Okay. Is there anything else from the state? One other thing I wanted to address. My understanding is the state, we do have two separate cases here. The state would proceed to trial on the 2021 case first? Yes.
That's correct, the first in time case.
All right. I think jury selection in this case could take longer than usual. Excluding jury selection, how much trial time do you think the state would take to present their side of the case?
I'm
You
sorry,
don't know?
I don't have that
Okay.
information.
We'll wait till January to talk to Attorney K about that. Just so we can block the appropriate amount of time in March. Well, I guess it'll be mostly April.
Your Honor, did you want to set a TMC as well?
No.
FTMC?
Yeah, that makes sense. Let's set that for,
Mhm. I just want to know if we're gonna.
let's set that for March 21. I'm sorry, no, not March 21. March 18. I'm going to set that before my morning calendar, my normal morning calendar, so at 8:20 a.m. All right, anything else from you?
My understanding is that it will be two totally different trials. Is that
Correct.
correct? So this is just, we're just setting things and we're just doing this for the first trial.
Right, well, you should be getting discovery for both cases as they go along, but the first trial will be on the 2021 case. And then at the conclusion of that trial, we'll talk about when we're gonna try the second case.
So all discovery deadlines will be for the first 2021 case.
Presumably, yeah. But we'll talk about how much discovery there is, we would expect from the state when we come back in January. All right. Anything else?
No, thank you.
All right, we'll be at recess on this matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge.
Wow, wow, wow. 1 second. So, yeah. How's everyone doing? Let's talk about what we just saw. I appreciate all your comments. First off, she introduces herself as Lori Daybell. You know, Arizona has been calling her Lori Vallow. She is married to Chad Daybell still. I don't know if she legally changed her name. She's always wanted to be called Lori Daybell. She is introducing herself as Lori Daybell still. That was the first thing that I noticed. Did anybody else notice that? By the way, leave your questions in comments. We're going to go over them. I tried to start a bunch of them. It's good to see, by the way, Tom Evans here today. Tom was a juror at the Lori Vallow trial in Idaho a year and a half ago. Tom, always good to see you. Monty D asked if a future Lauren is going to be at the trial. Yes, March 31st. So she mentioned March 31st. It's been mentioned that the trial, which will only be for the charges that she received in 2021, meaning her conspiracy to commit murder in Charles Vallow's death, that will be March 31st. And the attempted murder on Brandon Boudreaux will be separate. This is actually the first we've heard that. I don't think we knew that until today. She explains that she's been behind bars for 5 years studying case law. I believe her. I've heard that people do that, studying case law and visions of glory, both behind bars. I'm sure she's been quite busy studying those books, law and doomsday adventure books. She says that she's had a previous 10 years procedure in family law. Let's remind all of you about the long, drawn-out custody battle she had with her third husband, Joe Ryan, who was the father of Tylee Ryan. That lasted a very, very long time. I have all of that discovery, and we're talking nearly 700 pages. So she was definitely referring to that. And we also have that she says she's been part of 3 different trials, 1 bench, jury, family court. I assume she's meaning, of course, again, the custody battle with Joe Ryan, and of course, the trial that she was in Idaho, where she was convicted of murdering her 2 children. I did the live from my car yesterday speculating on what this all means, right? What this means. And of course, it was hard. I said a disclaimer. I think this could happen, that she could represent herself, but disclaimer, we don't know. We're going to find out today. So now that we know that she is going to represent herself, like, I want to talk about what this means. And so many of your thoughts, by the way, are my thoughts. And so many of your questions are my questions. So let's talk about it. Oh, shoot. 1 second. Are we good? Forgive me. That was I don't think you guys can hear that, but my phone rang on my laptop. So I had to just decline it. I forgot to put my phone on do not disturb, and I forget that it's the Bluetooth. Connects to my computer. So another thing that was really interesting was the judge stated, has anybody tried to sort of coerce you or convince you to do this? And she said it's quite the opposite. In other words, they've tried to deter her. She also said the judge made it clear. The judge made it clear that if she doesn't act appropriately, this privilege to represent herself can be removed. And she responded that she understands. Let's get to some of your questions. Yeah, Lori has had plenty of time to prepare. Honestly, Lori has had more time to prepare for her case than her counsel, because they are new and there are thousands and thousands of pages of discovery now. Heather, thank you. She is so confident, no shame. Where's Dr. John to help us understand? And how can she be said to report? Oh, how can she represent herself? Dr. John will come on later to talk about this. And he did talk about this on Sunday, a little bit less than a week ago, what this means and why he thinks she's doing this. But I will have him assess her body language and things that happened today in court. Sam, thank you so much. How can she be deemed sane to represent herself? Heather, it's a great question. She's been seen by, well, let's break it down. She's been seen by mental health experts that she has been deemed competent. First off, what does competent mean? Competent doesn't mean that you don't have a personality disorder, which she has been said to have had, or it doesn't even necessarily mean that you don't have some strange beliefs or delusional disorder. competent to stand trial simply means you understand the charges against you. You understand what this means. You understand the consequences. You understand what is going on. And I'll be honest, she sounds very competent in court. Yes, Your Honor, I understand. Quite the opposite. That is what it means to be competent to stand trial. You can have other mental illnesses or other struggles as long as you are competent to stand trial and represent yourself. And she has been deemed competent by multiple health professionals now. Tiger Lily, I agree. She says she's raging for Colby. She's still not putting her son first. Love to Colby and his new little family. That definitely has crossed my mind. Let's see what else you guys are saying. Barb, we'll find out. I think that due to jail food, he might have one chin these days. Yeah, she is. I'm so surprised. Troublemaker Baker says that she is not medicated at all. Let's talk about. Yeah, okay, let's talk about this, Lemisa. Melanice and Fib and others are likely to be quite stressed. So let me tell you what I think is going to happen. We heard her sentencing. Okay, so we heard her sentencing back in I get my years mixed up. It was 2023. Yeah, July 2023, right? Yeah. And she spoke for the first time in court then. And she said some bizarre things. Of course, it was a completely different case. It was about as she was convicted and sentenced. She was convicted and she was being sentenced in the murders of her two children, 7-year-old JJ Vallow and 16-year-old Tylee Ryan. And she said some bizarre things about having a near-death experience, about there being no murders, about being called of God. I have heard from multiple people, including a source with her defense in Idaho, that she absolutely still holds this belief system. And of course, the ultimate question we've always talked about in this case is, what is the difference between an extreme belief and a delusion? And are these simply extreme beliefs? I have seen multiple messages that she has written from prison since her conviction, where and before her conviction, where she seems to still very much believe in a belief system that most all of us find bizarre and strange, and that she has been called of God. So I am going to speculate that somebody asked Sunday, and it was a question that, when we do those lives with John, I let him answer most of the questions because we don't get him all the time. And somebody asked, is she going to try to preach from court? I want you to know that I think she's going to. She does every time. She did at her sentencing. She did in her recent interview with her son, Colby Ryan. She preached there about her beliefs. She said, people that are against me are inspired by Satan. So I think much of this is going to be preaching. When somebody mentioned here, let me find it. It was a starred comment. I starred so many now, I can't find them quickly. Someone said this might be the LDS Church's worst nightmare. I actually think you might be right. Because I do believe, is going to preach. Crash D, stay strong, Kate and Larry. I agree. Stay strong, all family. Let's talk about that too. Someone also asked, how are Kay and Larry feeling about this? I don't know. I haven't talked to them. I'm certainly going to reach out and see. We do keep in touch with Kay and Larry. Nothing that I can share public. They are our dear friends, but I will, if I can ever share anything, I will. With any family. But I do want to share one positive thing, and I would share this with all family. We are going to see who Lori Daybell. Lori Vallow, Lori Daybell. You say potatoes, I say potatoes. It's the same person. Doomsday mom. We're going to definitely see who she is. And I think that That's a positive here. Like there's going to be no question who she is and what she believes and what she stands for and how difficult she is. So I agree. Stay strong, family. I can't imagine being Kay and Larry or any surviving witness being questioned or cross-examined by their family's murderer. Like, think about that. Think about that. And it also shows how sadistic she is. She doesn't have an issue with this. She really doesn't. What else here? Sorry, I can't even keep up with the chat. In fact, let me slow it down just a little bit. Everyone, I'm going to slow this chat down so I can start reading a little bit more. Interesting. Huh. Lamisa says that she might look for me and try to have me removed. She wants ultimate control. Well, first off, I want to say I've never talked to Lori Vallow, and I've never been mentioned by Lori Vallow that I know of. So hopefully not. Hopefully not. It will be interesting though, but what you bring up is a very interesting point that she might have that type of control, right? To remove people from the courtroom. You just brought up a really interesting point. Will she be able to say, I don't want this person in the courtroom? So Channy, I don't know. But again, I can honestly say I've never communicated with Lori and she's never referenced me. So we have no relationship at all. There you go. Troublemaker Baker. Thank you. I don't think Lori has that authority. I think she would have to have a reason. I think she'd have to have a reason to remove anyone and it would have to be approved by the judge. In the end, I think you're right, Troublemaker Baker. In the end, the judge decides who leaves or doesn't leave the courtroom. And so if she had an issue with somebody, it would still be the judge's decision in the end. I want to bring up something. So I do feel bad. Let me say this. I do feel bad for the surviving victims here being interviewed or questioned by Lori Vallow. But let's talk about things like her family. So in the Arizona case, I think it's really interesting to see the difference here. So Idaho case, kind of a different discovery. There was some overlap. It's a Venn diagram, right? The crimes that happened in Arizona and the crimes that happened in Idaho, there's certainly a Venn diagram. And some of the Arizona case was brought into the Idaho case, particularly Charles Vallow's murder, leading up to showing the motive and the cause and why it happened in Idaho and why two children were murdered in Idaho and why Tammy Daybell lost her life in Idaho. It all begins with Charles Vallow's murder. So Charles Vallow's murder in that sense was brought up, as well as Brandon Boudreaux, the attempt on Brandon Boudreaux's life, right? That was also brought up. And Brandon Boudreaux was a witness in that, in Idaho. But a lot wasn't brought up. For example, Janice Cox was not a witness that testified in Idaho. Neither was Summer Shiflett testified in Idaho at Lori's trial, but only because there was a recorded phone call that referenced things in Idaho. But Janice Cox and Summer do come up quite a bit in the discovery in Arizona. So I'm going to assume that the prosecution, if Lori doesn't want to, might be interviewing Summer and Janice about what they knew, as well as Adam Cox too, leading up to Charles's death, Charles's murder, because they were communicating with Lori before and after. So first off, what is that going to be like with Lori cross-examining her own mother or her own sister? And I don't know if Colby would be called at all, because I don't know if he has much to do with anything. But he could be. And what would that be like for him? I feel terrible. But this is about that. But another positive: Melanie Gibb, Zulema Pastenis, Melanie Pulowski. We know them as someone said, Bibb and Melanie. That's how we tell them apart. What will it be like with a cross exam there? John Pryor in the trial in Idaho really tried to pin a lot of things on Melanie Gibb. In fact, we would joke that if John Pryor could, he would blame it on Melanie Gibb, the raccoon, you know, and Lori Vallow. Blame everything on those three, the co-conspirators. So when Melanie Gibb gets up there, I don't think Lori has any loyalty anymore to Melanie Gibb, for example, from what I've seen and heard, and you know, the way she's talked about her since trial. And will she try to blame things on Melanie Gibb or make Melanie Gibb a little bit more responsible? You know, we've heard Melanie Gibb's record conversation with Sherry Dawdle. That's on our channel, as well as True Crime Underground's channel. And, you know, will she try to throw Melanie Gibb under the bus? Will she try to throw her own daughter, tylee, under the bus, who was there, you know, protecting JJ in the car when this happened? Will she try to throw Alex Cox under the bus? Again, I've brought this up. She did not blame Alex Cox. She did not blame Alex Cox for anything when it comes to the death of her own children, and she could have made him the fall guy. He is now deceased. And she didn't. So will she blame Alex Cox for anything? He is the one that allegedly shot Charles Vallow. Will she blame him? Will she protect Melanie Pulowski? Will she blame Brandon Boudreaux? How far will her beliefs take her in blaming other people? It's fascinating. Betty says she hopes she doesn't blame tylee for the attempt on Brandon's life because it was Tylee's Jeep. And despite tylee being dead at that point, yeah, it's a concern. She will get all of the discovery and be able to read it all of herself. I do believe, Rosie, that this is calculated and she's going to try to intimidate witnesses. She will try to make Charles's sister look like an aggressive person and that others are scared of her. She might try to do a lot, but I think a lot of people are going to see through a lot. The fact that she said what she said in her sentencing speech, and the fact that she said what she said in her interview with Colby, and we've all been aghast and shocked. I don't know how. I think you're right that she's going to attempt, but I don't know how successful she's going to be. I really don't. Yeah, she told police that Alex was her protector. And then she brought up that Adam was trying. That's a good point, Mohawk Mom. She told police that Alex was her protector. And that's what she said in Idaho. You're right. And she brought up that Adam was trying to hurt her. So let's talk about Mohawk Mom's great statement. This is what she stated to police in Idaho, in Rexburg, Idaho, when they came to her door for the welfare check. So when she was avoiding all responsibility, her children were dead. They were trying to find out where JJ was. This is the beginning of Idaho's investigation. She said, this is all a misunderstanding, that Alex was her brother who was protecting her, and that Adam Cox was trying to get her $1 million life insurance policy. That's what she told police in Arizona. And if she decides to go with that defense, it'll be wild. Absolutely wild. But that could be her defense. You're right. She could blame things on Adam Cox. Let's see what else we have here. Someone is asking, what is this trial about versus all the others? This is about the shooting death of her fourth husband, Charles Vallow. And specifically that, not Brandon Boudreaux anymore. That will come later. She has been convicted and charged in the death of her children, JJ and tylee. That happened in Idaho. But the death of her husband, Charles Vallow, and by death I mean murder of all of these people, happened in Arizona. Ms. Vicky, I am wondering the same thing. Is hair dye available in the penitentiary? It did look like she had some highlights in front. I don't know if that's something that people are passing around, or maybe she learned how to dye just the front of her hair, but it certainly looks like she has some new highlights. If anybody knows, let me know. Juliet, I believe that she will be allowed to change clothes to represent herself. Whether or not she'll have shackles, I don't know. Monty, will future Lauren appear in Arizona? Yes. To those of you new to my channel, future Lauren means that while this trial will be televised, and it will be, if it's live, and we hope and assume that the trial will be live. Right now, this hearing wasn't live. It came out a little bit later, but it means that I'll be able to share then what is going on before everybody at home does. And it means that I will be in the courtroom, and I hopefully will be. I plan to be. That's who said, yes, the LDS Church might be in for a nightmare, because if she's going to profess her beliefs and they are against church doctrine or referencing deep doctrine of the LDS Church and claiming that she is a member of the LDS Church, which she still might be, by the way. Nobody has been able to confirm she has been excommunicated. It could be quite concerning for them. Squeaky Wheel hopes that the judge is prepared to keep her on a very short leash. I agree. I think he will. The fact that he said to her, by the way, if you don't act appropriately, you won't have this privilege to represent yourself. And she said that she understands. I wonder if she'll make it a point to defend Alex. I wonder as well. I think she might. I really think she might. This idea that Alex might be her fall guy, I don't know. I think she might protect Alex. I really do. Harley, I'm sure that Kay and Larry will share their thoughts very soon on Lori representing herself. I'll let them share though. As Colby Ryan said, well, she saw Legally Blonde. Indeed, she did. My heart breaks for Colby, as this feels like another grab for attention by her. As a mom, I am very proud of him. I agree. My heart breaks for Colby as well. This does seem like another grab for attention by her. And I think she's sadistic and wants to represent herself, but to torture Kay. I think in many ways, yes, she doesn't care who she hurts. She's not thinking of her only surviving child at this moment. She's not thinking of anyone but herself in this choice. It's what it seems like to me too. Yeah. She is doing this for fame. So sick. I do also agree. She loves this attention. And she certainly wants this attention. I'd like to remind everyone that her father, Barry Cox, represented himself, or actually claimed he was an attorney when fighting the IRS during, his belief that he did not owe taxes. So this sort of runs in the family. What happens to the diagnosis she got in her Idaho trial? She's cured from those mental illnesses. Well, first off, one thing that she was diagnosed with was a personality disorder, which isn't necessarily a mental illness. It's not a mental illness. It's personality. It's a personality disorder with some narcissism. They did not define what personality disorder that is, but they said they saw a lot of narcissism. That also is not anything that would deem her incompetent to represent herself. It definitely would make it more interesting as she represents herself. And then the other thing, though, that we heard from Judge Boyce was delusional disorder. I also don't believe that a delusional disorder would necessarily make it so someone is incompetent to stand trial. But I think what it does mean is that she has these really extreme religious beliefs that I believe that she firmly believes, and she will probably preach at this trial. What will happen if she doesn't feel like showing up for court? It sounds like the judge said that she won't be able to represent herself if she, if she doesn't follow the court rules. I think Janelle DeWitt Stacy is representing herself a way of getting to have one-on-one discussions with the witnesses. I have the same question. I hope to have an attorney on soon so we can answer all of our legal questions, hopefully possibly even later today. So stay tuned. Tom, I want to know if you're planning on attending this. Tom, again, was a juror at the Laurie Vallow trial, and he has written a book. Tom, I have your book here. This is Tom Evans' book that he wrote after being a juror at Laurie's trial. Do you think Chad will possibly be there as a witness? I'm not sure on the timeline, but I'm sure he was already involved considering that's when people started dying. Yes. So, okay, let's talk about this because technically, so Chad does not have any charges in Arizona. Let's talk about this. Chad is definitely in discovery. I personally think Chad should have been charged. And there were law enforcement officials and investigators and a detective that testified in Idaho that also said that Chad could still be charged and that he recommended it was recommended in the probable cause for charges that Chad Daybell also be charged. Some of where Chad Daybell shows up in Discovery of Arizona is when he calls the funeral home asking how much it would be to cremate Charles Vallow. He claims that he's an uncle and then said his name was Daybell and from Iowa, was it? And was calling the funeral home in Arizona for Laurie. We also have an email that allegedly Laurie wrote that says that she needs Chad Daybell to come and write a book for Charles. We have an affair. We have text with Charles saying he's going to contact Tammy. Chad Daybell shows up in the discovery a lot, despite him not being charged in Charles Vallow's death, murder, conspiracy to commit murder. Technically, I guess Chad Daybell could still be charged. He's on death row in Idaho. So will Chad be a witness? I don't know. Will Laurie want to protect him? Because if Laurie wants to protect him, she probably won't call him as a witness. She'll actually probably try to protect him and avoid Chad taking responsibility for this. But the prosecution can certainly call him. I think though that I think though, in my opinion, they won't call him. I don't think he would be a witness. What I think though is that he will come up in the prosecution's argument about the plotting and the planning, the affair with Chad. The affair that she was having with Chad is one of the major motives, right? And this belief system Chad Daybell and Laurie had together, and Chad Daybell saying that Charles was a zombie, and Melanie Gibb being on the phone in Arizona when Chad is telling them that Charles is a zombie. This all plays into the motive of this case. The prosecution will certainly bring up a lot of this discovery, but whether or not Laurie brings it up is to be determined. I do not think, though, that they will be calling him as a witness, in my opinion. Thank you to everybody sharing information. Colby could also be called as a witness. Yes. Colby was a witness in both Chad Daybell and Laurie's trials in Idaho. Tom, we'll be seeing you there. Great. Chad is definitely a part of this. Chad could certainly be accused of fraud as well. Yes. If Chad was a witness, he'd just be like, this woman is not incompetent. She knows what she's doing. She's a great planner. I do whatever she says. Yeah, Chad would love the opportunity to be a witness. He'd be like, she's in charge. She's in charge. Are cameras allowed in the courtroom? Yes, they are. Cameras are allowed in the courtroom. I mean, let me rephrase that. The judge could decide he doesn't want cameras in the courtroom At any point, he could change his mind. The Judge Bresky is in charge. But as of right now, he has approved cameras in the courtroom, and the pool camera at this time is officially Fox 10. A pool camera means that very often in courtrooms, only one camera is allowed in a courtroom because you can't have every media agency in a courtroom. It would distract from what's going on. So pool cameras are the camera that is chosen to be in there, and then they distribute the footage to all other media agencies. And because reporter Justin Lum in Arizona, who's been following this from the very beginning for over 5 years, he actually testified in court saying why cameras were important in the courtroom. And right now the judge has approved Fox 10, the local affiliate that Justin Lum works for in Arizona, to be pool camera. Jeremiah's lot, I appreciate what you're sharing here. Their heart goes out to Zulema and Melanie Gibb. I know many think that they were involved, but I still have my doubts. I don't believe literally killing anyone was in their minds. Thank you for sharing that. Born to Survive. Lauren question. Have you watched the show Under the Banner of Heaven? Yes. It's based on a murder involving LDS members and a blood atonement. I have watched it. I have. It's a good show. They did a really good job. It was and it does have to do with the blood atonement. There are a lot of similarities in this case, clearly. But there are some interesting differences too. But it is one that people that are intrigued in this case will probably find the Banner of Heaven on Hulu fascinating. Great question, Evie. Would Lori represent herself if there were no cameras allowed? Probably, but I'm sure that she is happy that cameras have been allowed. I agree. Thank you, Baker. Justin Lem, a great journalist. I imagine he has a very solid reputation with the court. I'm glad he is spearheading this. Right. We should all actually truly be grateful for Justin Lum right now because he is the reason I believe that cameras are in the courtroom. So, and I want to point this out too. Justin Lum was the local reporter. So the day that Charles Vallow was shot and killed, July 11th, 2019. I know what it's like to hear things on you get a list of incident reports from police when you're a local reporter. And this one was deemed, I believe, pretty quickly a self-defense. And Justin investigated. And Fox 10 continued to report on it because they just felt there was more to this. And so props to Justin Lum for seeing what this was from the very beginning. And they're the station that didn't let this go from the very beginning and continued to push on it. So really, Charles Vallow's murder, had he been listened to, instead of being murdered and had they arrested Alex Cox that day and at least had him stay overnight to investigate, I do believe that lives could have possibly been saved. It's heartbreaking. The trial starts March 31st, so we were thinking that it was going to be in February. The date has now been changed to March 31st. Blaze Fairchild says, I am surprised Lori's dad has never been involved in her cases, being his knowledge of the law. I agree. We have all heard very, very little from Barry Cox. But now, with you saying this, I wonder, is he helping her behind the scenes? I don't know. But I've wondered. So many great comments. Sorry, I get silent just reading all the comments. I'm here. I'm here reading all the chat, and I don't even realize how long I've been silent as I read. I guess that shows you I've been getting more comfortable hanging out and chat with y'all. For a second, I think I was like, yeah, yes. Um, great comments. You guys, thank you for processing this with me. Christina asks what my theory is that happened that day. And I actually starred your comment. I saw it when you posted that, and I'm trying to think if I can share. I think it's like what the probable cause states. I won't go into too much detail until later, but you know, so this is me speculating. I think, of course, it was a plan to go over there. I think that they plotted and planned and conspired to kill Charles Vallow that day. And they knew, Alex knew, Lori knew, many people knew what was going to happen that day. That morning when he went to go pick JJ up for school, nothing happened. Like he walked into his own murder. There was no way he could have avoided it. I do speculate that Lori might have, this is maybe, I don't know. I do not know. This is what I have considered. I think Lori might have taken Charles's phone when he entered to sort of get him riled up. Tylee testified or was a witness to police, and actually part of me believes Tylee. A lot of people think Tylee was lying for her mom, and I don't necessarily think that's true. We know that Tylee slept with a bat, and there's a part of me that believes that Tylee came out to hearing arguing or a scuffle, but I think the scuffle was created by Lori. And so Charles was probably like, give me my phone. Give me my phone. You know, right? Like, I think that they created a dilemma where Charles would need his phone back, and Tylee likely did then come out with a bat, and Charles was probably the entire time trying to diffuse a situation before he was shot. I know that other people think that he might have just walked in and been shot right away. I think that maybe he actually was trying to diffuse something and calm things down, uh, and then was shot. So that's a difference in my theory versus other people who think he just walked in and was shot right away. I think they might have tried to rile him up and caused chaos before. I will never understand, though, why Phoenix police didn't hold Alex Cox overnight. There were many things in that investigation that they saw that day. And I've wondered if it wasn't an affluent neighborhood, if they would have held him. Or if Lori wasn't so manipulative, if they would have held Alex Cox, because there was a bullet, there were multiple shots to Charles, and one of the shots went through the floor, meaning there was no self-defense at all from the very beginning. He shot Charles on the floor. Another thing that he said to police that day was that he went to his bedroom to get his gun, to bring it back out. If you can leave a situation to go get your gun, that means self-defense isn't necessary. Leave. You leave. There were so many reasons that police could have held Alex Cox, and they didn't. And I think that emboldened both Lori and Alex and Chad, realizing they could get away with this. I don't believe Tylee was a part of it. I don't. I think she might have come out to chaos and with a bat, but I think she took JJ out to the car. What do they mean, 2 trials? It means that Brandon Boudreaux, the charges with Brandon Boudreaux, the attempted murder on Brandon Boudreaux, will be a separate trial from the conspiracy to commit murder of Charles Vallow. There will be 2 separate trials for them. Yes, what just happened in court, we'll conclude with that, and then we'll regroup later because I am gonna hopefully have an attorney on soon to talk LawTube with us and what this means, because I have just as many questions as you do, all of you have when it comes to the law and what this means with Lori representing herself. And so what we learned today is that Lori Vallow is going to represent herself in the murder trial in Arizona, March 31st. And it will be televised as of right now. While she has been convicted and sentenced in Idaho to killing both of her children, as well as Tammy Daybell, Chad Daybell's wife, and her 2 children. The murder of Charles Vallow, which was actually the very first murder, which started the killing spree across states. She has not, nobody has been convicted in Charles Vallow's murder. And so this is, in other words, Charles Vallow has not received justice. And as Kay always says, which it's always touched me, that Charles would say, worry about me later, justice for the children first. Well, we did that. And now it's time for justice for Charles. And then after Charles will be the attempted murder of Brandon Boudreaux. If Joe Ryan was murdered, by the way, and we will probably never know because it has been open and shut now twice. But if he was, that would have been a different motive and a different crime and killing spree. But I absolutely think that he could have been murdered. Yeah. Troublemaker Baker bringing the quotes. Do you know what? You know how some people binge eat or, binge watch series? Troublemaker Baker, I love this about her. She's an amazing mod. She binge listens and then actually transcribes. So she binge transcribes when she's like upset. So here she is bringing her transcriptions. They're planking some kind of intervention, but they want Mel out of the way. So I'm left alone. This is Lori. This is Lori talking in a text. I need to come and get my stuff at your house tomorrow and secure it. Lots to do. Thank you for standing by me. Troublemaker Baker, who was Lori texting at that moment? Alex. Okay, there you go. All right. We'll end with that. Vintage girl. Now she thinks she's an attorney. Delusions of grandeur. Yeah. Hey, everyone. Hit subscribe and notifications because, like I said, I possibly will go live later today with either John or an attorney, and then we're going to have more for you as this comes down because this is seriously wild breaking news, and we'll be bringing you the very latest. And if I have any other information or anything else, I will go live quickly as well. We'll do some live with Lauren from my car or wherever the case may be because we're going to keep on this. So, all right, everyone. And thank you. Thank you, Mutu. Hit that like button. I appreciate it so much. Thank you to our incredible moderators for being here. This is going to be a wild ride and we will be following closely. We'll see you guys. Bye-bye.